I thought it was a good budget. And I thought the primary aim of it was to boost growth in the British economy. You can't tax your way out of a pandemic. You have to grow your way out of a pandemic. And I believe that this was the right course of action. And there's been some criticism of the decision to reduce the top rate of tax from 45 pence to 40. But if you look at the historical precedents, Nana, in 1988, in a famously radical budget, Nigel Lawson cut the top rate from 60%, as it was, to 40. What happened? The tax rate, the tax take, the money coming into the Treasury went up as a result. Brown put it back up to 50%. In 2013, George Osborne cut it back to 45%. What happened? The money coming into the Treasury went up. So the empirical evidence is that when you cut the top rate of tax, you actually increase the amount of money coming into the Treasury because you give people more incentives to invest, to take a risk, to start a business. So Labour's politics of envy, I don't think, are going to be actually convincing with regard to the British electorate.
So what do you think then? Because as you said, politics of envy, what would you say to those people though? Because a lot of people are saying, oh, well, it's like Robin Hood in reverse and, you know, comments of that nature.
Well, no, you see, I understand the point, but I don't think the facts bear that out. No. Why? One, because we're also reducing national insurance contributions from next month by 1.25%. So that will be more money in people's pay packets, and that affects virtually all working people in this country by Christmas. And then in April of next year, we're going to bring forward the 1p reduction in income tax that was due in 2024. We're going to bring it forward to 2023 to encourage growth in the economy. So there you have two tax savings, more money in people's pockets for people on, you know, ordinary, quotes, ordinary income. So this is by no means just for people at the top end of the earnings bracket. Just about everybody who is working in the UK will benefit from one or other of those two measures that I've just mentioned.
Well, I just want Mark then. So what do you think, though? A lot of people still criticising Kwasi Kwarteng. Do you think there should be any policies that he should consider U-turning on?
Well, whenever a government announces a budget, there is some criticism of it, you know, just as the sun rises and the sun sets. But, you know, we've had news. Well, look at the context. You know, we've had a pandemic. There is now a war in the Ukraine that you've just been talking about. And yes, I agree with the Secretary General. I think what Putin's done is a sign of weakness rather than of strength. But nonetheless, this has clearly had an effect on global energy prices, and that's been inflationary. So we're seeing inflation rising around the world. It's now 10% in Germany. It's now 10% in the Eurozone. And central banks across the world are increasing interest rates in order to try and combat that inflation. So what the Bank of England are doing here in the UK is by no means unique or out of kilter with what other central banks are doing around the world. So I think you have to see the budget in that context, because inflation is now a worldwide problem. And so we are just one part of that. And the Bank of England is reacting, as indeed are many other central banks around the world, by raising interest rates to compensate. And I think there are some people at the BBC, frankly, who've become almost hysterical about this.
Well, I mean, we've heard some of that. But you did mention Putin. And so whilst we're on the subject, what's your view on what's going on now with his annexation of those 4 parts of Ukraine?
Well, I think this is almost a sign of desperation. I mean, when you look at the so-called results of these referenda, they are so overwhelmingly one way, when we know that in those regions, in the real world, this would be a very controversial question. I mean, these are sort of, you know, like results from the North Korean Electoral Commission. And there's lots of, you know, anecdotal evidence of people being forced to vote at gunpoint. So these are completely rigged results. We have to make that point clearly. He's done it for a political purpose. I think it's a sign almost of desperation This war has not gone the way that he intended. They thought, and to be fair, so did many analysts, that they would win within a week. The Ukrainians have proved to be made of much sterner stuff. With our help and that of America and others, they have fought an incredibly valiant defence, and now they're counterattacking. So Putin is losing this war. He's under pressure from his own hawks and his own veterans, and now he's doubled down by trying to come up with these rigged ballots. These are the actions of a man who's losing, not of a man who's winning.